Electric. We are electric. We are electric. We are electric.
1, 2, 3.
Hello guys and welcome back to our online classroom. So, ang makikita natin ngayon is fourth quarter. So, anong ibig sabihin ng fourth quarter? So, meaning, this will be our last quarter for this year. So, konting tiis na lang matatapos na tayo sa ating online classes. And magkakameron na tayo ng vacation. That means, mas maraming oras ang matitira sa atin na pwede natin gamitin sa iba't iba pang bagay. Pero for this quarter, I hope mag-focus muna tayo sa ating schoolworks. Okay po? And welcome back again. And we're going to talk about different things regarding computer for our last quarter. So, enjoy lang and focus sa ating mga pag-aaralan. So, our topic in today's lesson is collaborating online. So, from the root word collaborate. So, in Google said, work jointly on an activity, especially to produce, create something. So, sabi dito, work jointly. So, ibig sabihin, meron tayong joint session or, in one word, we need to have teamwork. So, yun yung ating collaboration. And in teamwork, we need to have communication from each other para makapag-usap tayo. So, maraming ways of communication. For example, language, sign language. So, language is one of the very usable way of communication. So, meron tayo ditong methods of communication. So, tatlo po yung ating i-discuss for today. So, we have 6. So, we have Couriers, Morse code, the telegraph, the postal mail system, the telephone, and the last one, the big one that we always use for today, the internet. So, ginagamit natin yung internet ngayon. So, first up, we have the couriers. So, ano po yung couriers? So, for example, we have LBC, we have Earth21. So, we mostly use it, karamihan din sa paglalasada natin, pag-Shopee. So, yung mga ginagawa natin na online selling, mostly couriers yung ginagamit natin dyan to deliver our items or letters, messages, hard copy syempre na messages through letters. So, yan yung mga couriers natin. So, meron tayo ditong short video na papapanood ko sa inyo regarding sa mga couriers.
Heidelberg, Germany. Just imagine, it's 9 a.m. and you're going cuckoo because tomorrow it's your clock-crazy grandmother's birthday.
Diese ist schön.
You want to send a birthday treat, but it's going to be a race against time because Granny lives over 7,000 kilometers away in the United States. So, having made a last-minute purchase, you decide to entrust your precious parcel with an overnight courier company. Amazingly, it's now possible to deliver a parcel between continents in less than 24 hours. And the journey begins with drivers like Frank Gericke.
Also eine gewisse Prozedur, nach der wir arbeiten.
We work to a tight schedule.
Wenn man die einhält,
You're not allowed to dawdle.
dann kommt man also
You
schon
must be efficient.
sehr gut zurecht.
What makes it interesting is that you have no idea how the day's going to turn out.
Aber das ist normal.
There are always surprises.
Und im Laufe der Zeit
The cuckoo clock is now on its way. Meanwhile, in Cologne, top chef Horst Körner is in for a nasty surprise. Checking his fridge, he's discovered he's out of his trademark dish, North American lobster. It's time to place a last-minute transatlantic order.
Yes. Okay, no problem.
7,000 kilometers away in Louisville, Kentucky, Clearwater Fine Foods have a warehouse which is home to 20,000 kilos of Atlantic lobsters chilling out at 2 degrees Celsius. Vet-checked and licensed for export, 2 of them are about to be sent on a once-in-a-lifetime journey. But lobsters aren't the best long-haul travellers and can't survive out of water for more than a few days, so high-speed delivery is essential. Fortunately, it's just a short drive through the outskirts of the city to one of the world's biggest automated delivery centres. This is the UPS Worldport and is the heart of their operations. Covering an area larger than 70 football fields, it's constantly serviced by the 8th largest airline in the world, a 280-strong fleet of aircraft known as Browntails. Spread over the globe, UPS have 14 massive sorting centres, allowing them to handle over 15 million international deliveries every 24 hours. Back in Germany, the cuckoo clock has wound its way to the European sorting centre, based at Cologne Airport, and is being unloaded at the cargo drop-off point. Meanwhile, in Louisville, the lobsters have arrived at the Worldport. Having been silent for much of the day, as midnight approaches, it's about to spring into life as the night sort begins. Inside, 17,000 conveyor belts stretch for a combined distance of almost 200 kilometres. They form a vast industrial-scale magic roundabout, capable of sorting and transporting over 300,000 packages every hour. It's up to night owls like packer David Rich to load the packages onto the system.
I love it. I like the hours. I like being up at night. I never really was too much of a day person, and this fits into my schedule perfect.
Each night, David and his colleagues load and sort around 1 million parcels.
We usually try to get it out about 3 hours, quick as we can. Quicker the better.
The lobster box has now joined the first conveyor system, which feeds it to the main belt. But if they reach the wrong exit and are delayed, they'll cause quite a stink. So to keep track of them as they pass through the system, they've been tagged with a barcode. This unique code tells the system the precise destination of each package. But back in Cologne, there's a problem. The barcode on the cuckoo clock has been damaged, and now the computer system doesn't know where to send it. Fortunately, even this problem won't stop the sort. A digital camera has photographed the damaged label and relayed the picture to a team who can read the full address and redirect the parcel. The packages are now fed into areas called singulators. These ingenious devices isolate, orient, and direct the parcels to the correct conveyor. Packages wanting to join the main circuit are held, then released to slot in perfectly. There's even a special system of conveyors designed to cope with irregularly shaped parcels and smaller documents. Far from human contact, on a multitude of levels, the packages and parcels glide through the cavernous space, each on its own private journey. And all the while, computers are tracking each parcel precisely and know exactly when their exit is approaching. At precisely the right time, rubber buffers like hockey pucks give the clock a timely shove, and it slides down a chute to the departure gate. Meanwhile, back in Louisville, the lobster's journey through the system comes to an end with a gentle bump. In all, their roller coaster ride through this vast complex has taken less than 5 minutes, and they're now at the correct gate ready for their flight. The next job is to load them onto one of the specially designed cargo containers, which are shaped to be a perfect fit for the company's brown-tail planes. Once loaded, each of these containers weighs as much as a baby elephant, so you might expect moving them through the facility would be hard work. But thanks to thousands of tiny wheels mounted on ball bearings, moving these containers is more like ballroom dancing.
It's kind of hard once you get the momentum going to stop it and turn it. But it's a lot easier than you might imagine.
With 225-kilo containers gliding effortlessly to and fro, over 100 aircraft can be unloaded and reloaded every 4 hours. The lobsters are now on board for their transatlantic flight to Cologne. But with packages heading to 200 countries around the world, coordinating all these flights is a massive challenge. Every night there are over 100 UPS aircraft flying in and out of the Worldport, and every flight is working to a strict schedule. The biggest threat is unpredictable weather, so to plan ahead, they rely on weather wizard Jeffrey Peters.
It's very rewarding when they use one of your forecasts to make a change to the operation that ensures the packages get to the customer.
Once Jeff has the forecast, he briefs the team.
There's some thunderstorm activity up there, but for departure time, I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's going to reform.
If necessary, planes can be rerouted or additional flights organised within a matter of minutes. But fortunately tonight, the weather is clear, and the lobster's plane is good to go. The next morning, they touch down in Cologne. Once unloaded, they arrive in the customs hall. It's here that they encounter Franz Josef and Rudy, a customs team half man, half beast.
The relationship between the dog and his handler is very close. You make up one entity, the dog and handler. It feels great when you have such a loyal partner.
Rudy smells something fishy, but he lets it pass, and the lobsters are free to carry on their journey. Meanwhile, in the USA, the cuckoo clock has already cleared customs and is being delivered by van.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It arrives bang on time and assumes pride of place on the living room wall, much to Granny's evident delight. Back in Cologne, it's coming up to 24 hours since Horst ordered his lobster.
Moin, Herr Körner, eine Expresssendung.
Mann, seid aber super in der Zeit.
At last, he can relax, knowing there'll be seafood on the menu tonight after all. Which is great news if you happen to be one of Horst's dinner guests. And rotten news if you happen to be a lobster.
And then, after that, after the courier, we also have the International Morse Code or the Morse Code. So, yan mga codes na yan, pwede yan through lightning, pwede din through sounds. For example, letter A. Kung mapapansin nyo, isang dot at isang mahabang line. So, pwede nyo siyang i-convert through sound. For example, letter A. Dot, the, ay, paano ba? For letter B, zzz, tut, tut, tut. Ibig sabihin, B yun. Tapos, for letter C, zzz, tut, zzz, dut. So, ibig sabihin nun, letter C siya. So, pwede siyang i-convert din through lightning. So, kapag ang umilaw ng isang mabilis tapos isang mahaba, so letter A siya. So, may papakita ko sa inyong video regarding sa ating Morse code para mas magets nyo pa yung meaning ng ating Morse code.
Did you get that? If you lived in the 1850s or are a modern amateur radio operator, you might have. That's Morse code, and in an age of constant information communication, it wasn't too long ago that this communication method was vital to making the world go round. Back in the early 1800s, engineers and scientists were just starting to pioneer electrical communication methods. In 1836, Samuel Morse, Joseph Henry, and Alfred Vail invented the electrical telegraph system. It was the first system that allowed communication over great distances. However, there was a problem. It could only communicate pulses of electricity to another machine. This meant that you wouldn't be able to communicate using voice or text, so a new way of getting messages across the world was needed. A code was developed by none other than Samuel Morse to translate electrical pulses back into the original message. Originally, Morse's code only incorporated numbers, but Vail helped expand it to include letters and other characters. Morse code was born. The code assigned a sequence of short and long pulses to numbers and letters. Later, these pulses would be thought of as dots and dashes. The rules of Morse code are as follows. Each dot serves as the basis of time for the code. 1 dash is equivalent to the length of 3 dots. After each character, there's a silence that is equivalent to the length of 1 dot. This relative timing allows for Morse code to be easily sped up and slowed down, all while keeping the same pace. As far as how Samuel Morse and Alfred Vail decided on how to assign the specific sequences of dots and dashes to each letter, they actually studied the frequency of which each letter was used in the English language. They then assigned the easier dot and dash sequences to the most used letters during that time period. For example, E, the most common letter, is represented by a single dot. Originally, telegraph machines would mark sheets of tape with the message, but eventually telegraph operators learned to translate these dots and dashes audibly, making the tape unnecessary. This also meant that Morse code started being taught as an audible language, rather than a written one of symbols. In 1905, the International Morse Code Distress Signal was used, otherwise known as SOS. This became the standard maritime distress signal around the world within the coming years. These series of letters were actually chosen for their simplicity, not for the letters SOS. It wasn't until later that people began associating phrasing with those letters, like save our ship or save our souls. So, Morse code was invented as a necessity of the first mass communication method utilizing only electrical pulses. It was, and to some degree it still is, a vital means of communication across the world.
Okay, so guys, if napanood nyo na rin yung movie na Parasite, meron din dong part na gumamit ng Morse code yung father niya ba? Father niya ba yun? Para ma-determine yung lugar yata niya. So yun, if gusto nyo mapanood, so nandoon, may part din doon na gumamit siya ng Morse code. So sikat yung movie na Parasite. And also, sana na-enjoy nyo yung ating short clip regarding Morse code. And then we have the telegraph. So ano po yung telegraph? So ito po ang ating telegraph.
In 1995, the founder of 3Com, Robert Metcalfe, said, "I predict the internet will soon go spectacularly supernova and in 1996 catastrophically collapse." A century earlier, Thomas Edison said, "Fooling around with alternating current is just a waste of time. Nobody will ever use it, ever." These examples illustrate the reason amateur radio operator Bruce Manning says more people should study the history of the telegraph.
It gives you an idea of how things progressed along, and then you think about what we're doing today and what's going to be happening in another 20, 50, 100 years from now, where we're going to be at.
Manning gave a lecture recently on the telegraph at the Tyler History Center in downtown Youngstown.
To send a message to the West Coast would take weeks.
Before the telegraph, the only way to send messages was through the mail, which was carried by stagecoach, Pony Express, or train.
There were a lot of people working on different types of telegrams and telegraph systems in the day.
In 1835, Samuel F.B. Morse was in Washington, D.C. when he received a letter telling him his wife had fallen ill at their home in Connecticut.
By the time he got back home to Connecticut, his wife had passed away and was buried. And he said there's got to be a better way we can do stuff. Wire telegraph started in the 1840s. Samuel F.B. Morse started doing some stuff actually in the late 1830s. And 1844 is when he put the long line in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and sent those first messages we all read about.
The first message, sent May 24th, 1844, read, "What hath God wrought?"
Impact-wise, huge impact on businesses. They were able to send messages back and forth. Banks used this system a lot for money transfers and so on, and the press used it a lot. Something big would happen in Washington, D.C., Baltimore would know about it in a matter of minutes.
The original design of the telegraph used a magnet to push a pin up and down that would scratch the dots and dashes into a piece of paper, which would then be decoded to get the message. It wasn't until later they realized that part of the design was unnecessary.
They finally figured out, hey, a guy can grab a key and make the key go up and down, send dits and das, and then people said, well, I've listened to it enough, I understand it, I don't need that paper with the scribe marks on it.
People then began experimenting with how to send voice without the wires. The breakthrough came in 1886 when Heinrich Hertz proved the existence of electromagnetic fields. Of the discovery, he said, "I do not think that the wireless waves I have discovered will have any practical application." And most radio manufacturers shared his view.
Commercial radio wasn't even thought of. When wireless radio first started, it was just for sending messages. It was to compete against the telegraph.
But as amateurs kept coming up with new ways to utilize the technology, the commercial applications began to reveal themselves.
and people started playing music on the radio, and people listened to it for entertainment. There were baseball games played on the radio and so on, and that became a huge thing. But a lot of those early people didn't look at it that way, and look what it's turned into today with radio and so on.
Which is why Manning says studying the telegraph can be a valuable exercise for people looking at today's technology with an eye toward the future.
The people today looking down the road 50 years from now may be thinking one thing, and it may be entirely different.
Okay, so yun po yung ating telegraph. So we already have learned 3 communication method for this lesson. So ang una po, we have the Couriers, and then we have the Morse code, and then we have the third one, which is the telegraph. So we're going to continue our discussion on our next week lesson. So meron pa tayong 3. So for this one, meron muna tayong activity na gagawin. So choose one of the 3 communication method and draw yourself using it. Take a picture of your drawing and send it to your Google Classroom. So yun lang po yung gagawin natin. Magdodrawing lang ng maalin doon sa 3 yon, and then isa-send nyo sa Google Classroom, and then i-check ni sir, and then go grade down regarding din sa creativity nyo. So sa effort, and then sa connection niya sa ating topic for this one. So 50-50 lang po siya, connection, and then yung effort and creativity dun sa ating ginawang activity. So yun lang po, and then katulad ng dati, i-comment down nyo lang yung ating core values na natutunan, and then yung connection ng core values na ito sa ating lesson. So yun lang po, and may the Lord smile on you. Paalam guys. Okay, so yun po yung ating telegraph. So we already have learned 3 communication method for this lesson. So ang una po, we have the Couriers, and then we have the Morse code, and then we have the third one, which is the telegraph. So we're going to continue our discussion on our next week lesson. So meron pa tayong 3. So for this one, meron muna tayong activity na gagawin. So choose one of the 3 communication method and draw yourself using it. Take a picture of your drawing and send it to your Google Classroom. So yun lang po yung gagawin natin. Magdodrawing lang ng maalin doon sa 3 yon, and then isa-send nyo sa Google Classroom, and then i-check ni sir, and then go grade down regarding din sa creativity nyo. So sa effort, and then sa connection niya sa ating topic for this one. So 50-50 lang po siya, connection, and then yung effort and creativity dun sa ating ginawang activity. So yun lang po, and then katulad ng dati, i-comment down nyo lang yung ating core values na natutunan, and then yung connection ng core values na ito sa ating lesson. So yun lang po, and may the Lord smile on you. Paalam guys.